I arrived in Cebu planning to get one small tattoo as a souvenir from the Philippines. 5 hours later, half my chest had been tattooed, I was collecting McDonald's topless and barefoot, and the following day, the entire country stopped selling alcohol. I'm Adam, the ordinary wanderer, and this is one of those stories.
With a restless soul, rock and roll spirit taking full control from the cliffside bars to the hidden caves where the kings and queens of the midnight wave.
The previous episode ended with me leaving Martle and heading back to Cebu. The adventure was almost over, but I still had one thing I wanted to do before leaving the Philippines. Get a tattoo. Whenever possible, I like to get a tattoo from the countries I visit. Not simply the country's name or the date I went there, but something connected to the experience. My own permanent souvenir. After arriving in Cebu, I checked into my hotel and contacted my friend Martle, who I'd met during a previous trip. I told her I wanted a tattoo representing the Philippines and asked if she knew somewhere good. We arranged to meet for a drink and then headed to Infamous Ink in Cebu. At this point, the plan was still perfectly sensible. One small tattoo, something to eat, and perhaps a few drinks afterwards. That plan lasted until I started talking to the artist. I explained that I wanted something representing the Philippines, but I was happy for the artist to include some of his own ideas and create something more original. We looked at different images for inspiration, particularly designs connected to Apo Wangod and traditional Kalinga tattoo art. To be clear, this wasn't an authentic tattoo by Apo Wangod. It was an original design created by the artist in Cebu. But her work and traditional Filipino patterns heavily influenced the style we discussed. The artist produced a small initial sketch, and I liked it. It was roughly the size I'd imagined. Then we started discussing where it should go. That became a conversation about whether it would look slightly better larger. Then we discussed the shape, the amount of detail, and the price. Somewhere during that conversation, my small souvenir tattoo became a design covering half my chest. The tattooist was clearly extremely talented. Unfortunately for me, he was also extremely good at upselling. The artist spent around another 30 minutes creating the full design, and that gave me plenty of time to reconsider what I'd agreed to. I could have returned to the original small sketch. I could have remembered that I had plans for food and drinks. Instead, about an hour after entering the studio, I found myself lying topless on this couch, preparing to have the largest and most intricate tattoo I've ever received. Martle also decided to get a tattoo while we were there. Unlike me, she managed to retain some sense of proportion and kept hers small. This was probably the more sensible interpretation of a small souvenir tattoo. By the time the needle touched my chest, however, it was far too late for me to learn from her example. I've had several tattoos, so I knew it wasn't going to be painless. But this became the most painful and uncomfortable tattoo I've ever had. Part of that was simply the amount of time involved. The complete tattoo took approximately 5 hours. The worst part was the location, particularly whenever the artist worked near my collarbone. You don't just feel the needle on your skin there, it feels as though the vibration is travelling directly through your bone. Some sections were manageable, others made me reconsider every decision that had brought me into that building. Because the tattoo covered such a large area, just as I became accustomed to the pain in one place, the artist would move somewhere completely different and start again. As the hours passed, our plans for dinner disappeared. The drinks disappeared. Any idea of going out afterwards had completely disappeared. Martle eventually realised that if she didn't arrange food for me, I probably wasn't going to eat at all. So she ordered me a McDonald's through Grab. Fortunately, the food arrived while the tattooist was taking a break. Unfortunately, the studio was upstairs. I had no shirt on, no shoes on, and at that stage, little more than the outline of an enormous tattoo across my chest. So I walked downstairs, topless and barefoot, to meet the delivery driver. And there are moments while travelling when you suddenly become aware of how strange you must look to everyone else. Standing outside a tattoo studio in Cebu late at night, dressed like this, and collecting a McDonald's, was definitely one of those moments. I took the food back upstairs, ate what I could, and returned to the couch. It was close to 2 o'clock in the morning when the tattoo was finally completed. I was exhausted, uncomfortable, and very ready to get off that couch. But when I stood up and saw the complete design, I loved it. What was supposed to be a small souvenir had become the biggest and most detailed tattoo I'd ever received. It was also my favourite. The design represented the Philippines, but it also felt strangely appropriate for this particular trip. Something that had started with a fairly simple plan had grown into something much bigger than I had expected. Since returning home, its connection to Apo Wangod has helped influence my next journey. When I return to the Philippines later this year, I'm planning to travel into the mountains to visit Buscalan myself. So this tattoo didn't just commemorate one journey. In a way, it helped create the next one. For that night, however, I went back to my hotel, carefully washed and attempted to sleep without rolling onto my tattoo. The following morning, I showered, checked out and left my luggage behind the hotel reception. My flight wasn't until around 2 o'clock the next morning, so I still had one final day in Cebu. The plan was to meet Martle again and visit Tops. After spending most of the previous evening under a tattoo needle, a quiet afternoon enjoying the views sounded ideal. There was only one small detail I hadn't noticed. It was election day, and in the Philippines, election day comes with some rather unexpected rules. We arrived at Tops, took some photographs and spent some time looking out across Cebu. From up there, you can see across the city towards the surrounding islands, and after everything that had happened during the week, it was the perfect place to slow down and enjoy one final afternoon in the Philippines. But first, we wanted lunch. We found a restaurant, but it wasn't serving any alcohol. I didn't think much of it. I simply assumed that particular restaurant didn't sell it, so we tried somewhere else. They weren't serving alcohol either. That was when I finally asked why, and that was how I discovered that the Philippines was holding a national and local elections, and the entire country was under a nationwide liquor ban. I had somehow chosen one of the only days on which more than 100 million people had collectively stopped selling beer. The ban applied on the day before the election and the election day itself. The sale, serving and consumption of alcohol was generally prohibited to help keep the elections peacefully and orderly, but there was an exception. Certain authorised tourist establishments could still serve foreign visitors. Eventually, we found somewhere that could legally serve me, but not Martle. This was excellent news for me. Martle found it considerably less amusing. She had supported me through 5 hours of tattooing, ordered my McDonald's and returned the following day, and her reward was watching the English tourists have a drink while she wasn't allowed one. We stayed at Tops for a few hours, had something to eat and watched the sunset over Cebu. For once, nothing went wrong. No broken scooter, no surprise birthday announcement, and no further expansion of the tattoo. Just good company and one of the best views in Cebu. By the time we returned to the main viewing area, it had become considerably busier. We explored for a while before eventually heading back down into the city. In the city, we found somewhere playing live music and spent my final few hours in the Philippines listening to the band. Then at around 10 o'clock, it was time for me to leave. I said goodbye to Martle, collected my luggage and headed to the airport. My next destination was Pattaya, followed by Ho Chi Minh City and eventually Bangkok. The journey wasn't over, but my time in the Philippines was. When I arrived in Bohol, I expected to spend most of the week as an ordinary solo traveller. Instead, I barely had a moment alone. I met people who were only supposed to be part of one evening, but somehow they became part of the entire journey. Together, we survived bad decisions, broken plans, a broken scooter, and a birthday I tried very hard to keep secret. I saw some incredible places, but when I look back, it isn't the beaches, the waterfalls, or viewpoints that made Bohol my favourite place in the Philippines. It was the people. I went there expecting to be alone, and I left feeling like I belonged. The tattoo may have been my permanent souvenir from the Philippines, but the friendships and the memories we created together are the real reasons I'm going back. This was one ordinary week in the Philippines, and it became one of the most memorable weeks of my life. I'll see you back in the Philippines in November.